So the film hits on mental health issues with your character Alonso suffering from multiple personality disorder. What was the inspiration behind this film?
So there are two key aspects of the movie. You're identifying the central one of mental illness and severe mental illness in this case, and it's set alongside this mixed martial arts journey that our character is on. But the heart of the movie is this character, a trauma survivor's journey, his struggle to come to terms with his mental illness and find a healthy way to manage it, because it's become a really toxic and disruptive and dangerous component in his life. And the inspiration for it was just this long-held interest I've had in abnormal psychology. This illness in particular struck me as one that we had never really seen depicted with any authenticity, any nuance in film. I felt like it had always been touched on in a very superficial way, or turned into this like superpower, that felt borderline exploitative, and the more that I researched it, especially when I learned that there are different forms of mental illness. Some are trauma-based, like multiple personality disorder. Others are genetic. So you have a genetic makeup that when you go through puberty, for example, and your hormone levels spike, and it changes your brain chemistry, that mental illness can present itself during that time. This is not one of those illnesses. This illness, you had to endure a traumatic event so severe as a child that your brain, as a defense mechanism, split and created another personality, an alter, as a response to the trauma that this person was enduring. And then the thing that really got my interest and stuck out to me as a story arc for this movie was the fact that the brain, while it splits, it also takes the memory of that traumatic event and it hides that memory in your long-term memory bank. So the conscious mind doesn't know what happened to them that gave birth to this illness that dictates so many aspects of their life and of their future. And that, to me, felt incredibly urgent to share that, because I didn't know it. And I knew, as someone who, took a real interest and passion for it, like if I wasn't aware of it, probably a lot of people weren't. And the form of therapy that we show in the movie, EMDR, that's a real form of therapy that had never been shown in a film before. And it's a pioneering form of therapy that seems to be the most effective way for someone like Alonso, someone suffering from a trauma-based illness, to uncover the mystery of what happened to them as a child, and do it in this really intensive and frankly fairly cinematic way with the binaural audio stimulation using this light bar. It felt to me like we really had an opportunity to tell a story that dealt with these issues in a way that was thought-provoking and compelling, but also hopefully shedding light on something that people didn't know before, and really sharing what's really happening in this world and what the pioneering forms of therapy are that are addressing it.
Yeah, you mentioned as well, I mean, you've mixed in MMA in there, MMA, there was nearly said MDMA then. Alonso,
not on this one.
He's obviously an aspiring MMA fighter. I mean, how much training was there involved? I mean, you looked in pretty decent shape.
Thank you. Yeah, well, if you want to get in great shape, I recommend you decide to act in a movie where you're going to be shirtless for half the film. You know what I mean? That's the best motivation you could ever wake up for to work out, is knowing that. It's terrifying. But on the actual MMA training side, I had been already for years interested in, a fan of the sport and a martial artist myself, training in boxing and Muay Thai, in jiu-jitsu. And that aspect of it felt very natural and very exciting, that I was going to be able to put MMA fight action in a movie and do it in a different way. One thing that we did I was looking for every opportunity I could find to differentiate this movie, because I know there are no stars in this movie, at least at the time that we made it. And, I have to give people a reason to give a fuck. I have to give people a reason to care. And I saw an opportunity. Every other movie, the way they shoot fight scenes is with a stunt coordinator, stunt actors, in this very staged sort of fake way. And I said, okay, we could disrupt all of that by just casting real fighters and having me actually fight with these people and just recording it. And I was like, it sounds so simple. Is it going to work out that way? Like it almost sounds too obvious, but now we're in a place where we've been rewarded so much for that, because people watch it and they say, oh my God, like the fights feel so authentic. They feel so visceral, you know, they feel so immediate. How did you do it? And it's like, we just kept it as simple as possible. We just really fought and recorded it. And thankfully it's kind of broken through the noise in a way, because it's like exposing to a degree how staged and fake so many fight scenes are in movies, that it's like, you can't get punched 30 times in the face and still look like you just got out of a GQ ad, you know?
Exactly. I mean, yeah, I mean, you mix his aggressive alter ego with the fighting, but was there ever a moment, obviously you're saying it was like kind of real, basically, was there ever a moment it went too far and someone actually did get hurt?
Well, I mean, I broke this right knuckle, you know, shooting the amateur fight scene on my guy, Charlie the Bull, Charlie Decca's head. You know, he's hard-headed, you know what I'm saying? And I threw a right hook, and we shot it as a oneer, the walkout all the way through the fight. And thankfully, I'm the one who endured the brunt of the abuse. I can promise you, the UFC superstar, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal, the final opponent in the movie, who makes his acting debut in our film, I did not injure him too badly, you know, and thankfully he has so much control. That was one of the incredible blessings of making this movie, was I got to share a cage and move around with one of the best fighters in the world, you know, this legendary fighter, Jorge, who in sparring with him and fighting him for this movie, I was able to experience what truly world-class technique and control feels like from, you know, one of the greatest, you know, fighters that's currently active. And that was so special, and I'm really proud to have captured it on film.
Yeah, and obviously you've got a great diverse cast as well. I mean, was this always the route that you were going to go down?
Definitely, yeah. If there's anything that unifies all of my story ideas and all of the projects that I create, it's I want them all to have a Latino protagonist, whether it's male or female, and that is Latino driven. Because for me, like I told you, I'm always looking for ways to differentiate my movies. And coming from being born and raised in Miami with a family that's part Latino, part Jewish, I had always felt like I just came from a background that I felt was a little different from what I saw portrayed in film and TV. And especially once I had the privilege of going to film school, and there I learned like the numbers. At USC, there's a lady, Stacy Smith, who's one of the foremost like statisticians. I don't know if that's a word, but she does like all this pioneering research into representation in film and TV. And that's when it hit me how Latinos are almost 20% of Americans, yet they're less than 2% of lead characters in movies. When I started seeing numbers like that, let alone how often, if you're a Latino in film and TV, as a woman, you're either a maid or a sex symbol. And as a man, you're either a drug dealer or an illegal border crosser. And it's like, growing up, almost none of the Latinos that I knew in Miami fit any of those descriptions. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It felt so reductive. And I was like, man, I really have an opportunity here to not just tell stories for this community and in this community, but also celebrate all of the talent that we have in the Latino community and beyond. Obviously, we also have Gregory Chopin, who's his dad's from Ivory Coast, so he's African French, and he's so charismatic, so magnetic. He plays Coach Kante. He's a 5-time Muay Thai world champion, and he brought so much charisma and magnetism to the screen because he's the real deal, you know? So for me, it was really, from casting, it was a question of the more diverse, the better. But really, it's like, what's really realistic? I went into the gyms, into the courthouses, and I just said, how many of these real people can play the roles that they're doing in real life? How many of them can we put in the movie? So I don't have to invent. I don't have to teach this actor from LA how to act like a Haitian inmate, you know what I mean? Or a Haitian gym owner. And so that was our guiding process. And thankfully it added so much to the movie, so much authenticity, so much color, you know?
Yeah, it does definitely. I mean, it's gone from being quite a low budget, you know, independent film, you know, made in a short space of time, and it's been snapped up by HBO. How did that come about?
I mean, this is one of the craziest things of our whole journey, you know, is that we have secured like the most prestigious distributor in the United States, HBO, for our US release. And maybe even better, we're getting a theatrical release throughout the United Kingdom starting this Friday, October 23rd. What a blessing, you know, like definitely it was something I aspired to when I was dreaming of this movie and hustling for the last 4 years to bring it to life. But seeing it actually happen has been incredibly overwhelming, you know. We had the distinct fortune on our film festival circuit of being invited to and selected by the New York Latino Film Festival run by Calixto Chinchilla, who's a really a champion of not just cinema, but Latino-driven cinema. And at his festival, the New York Times discovered our movie and they reviewed it and they gave us our first review ever. And it was such an amazing review. They really championed our movie and put it on the map. And that was a huge turning point for us, where we got on HBO's radar through the New York Latino Film Festival and through the New York Times review. And those things definitely gave us the momentum, I think, the stamps of approval in a way for our UK distributor, Studio Soho, to take notice. And once they watched our movie and really felt like, man, this is something different and something special, something worth putting their investment behind. And I can only be grateful for what's happened so far with the movie.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking to Flavourmag today.
Thank you.
Thank you.